Welcome to the Glenn Beck Show, If Scott Was There. That's the name of the show, the Glenn Beck Show, If Scott Was There. And this is our first episode. Today Glenn was talking about the situation of Barack Obama, if hypothetically, and it might not be hypothetical very long, Barack Obama declares a gun ban, which of course would be unconstitutional and outside of the powers of Congress, and we know that he is a would-be or will-be despot, tyrant, so that's not a surprise to anybody that he would make such a move. He's already threatened to, so no news there. But it was Glenn's perspective on that I wanted to take issue. The state in which you live is going to be of paramount importance, as I've been saying for the past 4 years since this guy was first elected, and it became evident that he was here for no other purpose than to foment discord, to destroy the United States, and to provoke civil war. Now, Glenn Beck's idea of dealing with the situation, when a caller called in and asked, what am I going to do when they actually come knocking on my door? I am not going to surrender my guns. Now, the situation, as described by the caller, is definitely a standoff. Now, there are a few different ways that you could go about handling that as an individual. You can either comply and relinquish your guns or not, in which case you're going to be arrested. Now, Glenn's solution was not to fire back, not to turn it into a Waco, but to simply say you're going to have to arrest me. That sounds great, but who's going to be the guinea pig? Who out there is going to be the first? When the federal government comes out and demands one by one, house by house, that people give up their guns, it's going to be like the IRS. Okay, we know the IRS is engaging in bullying, has long engaged in bullying, has long engaged in threats and intimidation. That's what they do, and they do it in a case-by-case situation, to the point where most people are scared into submission. It doesn't matter if the income tax is unconstitutional. They just pick a few people and they terrorize them, and then the stories circulate and everybody's scared and complies, constitutional or not. Now, it's going to be the same with the guns. They can either pick somebody, a few people who they know will surrender, or if they're not sure, they can have some actors buy some guns and then stage a confiscation where it turns into a pseudo showdown, something that would make the news, which I'm sure the news would comply and cover this showdown farce without any reservation. And then so you have people scared into submission. They make a few examples. Everybody's terrified. It's easy to say now, like if they show up at Glenn Beck's doorstep asking for his gun, or they show up at Alex Jones' door and ask for his guns or demand his guns, we know that everybody's watching. They have the whole country watching. We know that that's going to make the news. If they did that, they would be foolish because they wouldn't get the result that they want. They're going to go to some people where they know that they'll get the desired result for the propaganda war. And believe me, everybody will fall in lockstep. Most people, I should say, will fall in lockstep. Most people will surrender their guns. Unless, and this is what I've been saying all along, the state in which you live is going to be of paramount importance when they're coming for your rights. You give up your guns, you're giving up everything. You're going to give up your freedom of religion, you're going to give up your freedom of speech, you're going to give up your property ownership. They will take everything, and before you know it, we will be full-fledged higher communism, Soviet style. Okay? And that is where it is important that our state representatives and our governors are ready to stand up for our rights, because obviously this would be unconstitutional. The Constitution is very, very lucid, in the fact that we have the right to bear arms. And it is also very clear, as the Founding Fathers made it, that any right not specifically expatiated within the Constitution is reserved for the states. So the federal government would be committing not just a breach of constitutionality, but within the Bill of Rights, you could say treason. I would say they've already committed treason. The only thing is that they get away with it, and they know they can by intimidation. We are at war. Obama has declared war on the American people. Obama has declared war on the United States of America by his consistent insolence and effrontery against the Constitution and the freedoms that make America what America is, our very foundation. There is no doubt about that. Glenn Beck's solution was the peaceful one, and it's not going to be a situation where this can be resolved by the people, like in Gandhi fashion. They don't understand that. And it isn't going to happen by people saying you're going to have to arrest me, and then more people will follow, and the federal government's just going to go from door to door and arresting a whole bunch of people, and we're all just going to willingly go along with it, and just all of us get arrested. No, people don't work that way. Nobody wants to be the first to do it, and very few people are going to. And the federal government's going to make some examples and scare the living hell out of people and let them know what the price of resistance will be. And most people will talk tough and say they're not going to do it, but when it comes time to doing it, they're going to do it. They're going to comply. They're great at this. This is what our federal government has become. We have actually become the evil empire. We have become everything evil that has ever, in classic American cinema, that has portrayed the enemy as evil, like look back in the 80s, back in the Rambo days, when Rambo was caught by the Vietnamese or wherever he was, and they strapped him up and they started shocking him and torturing Rambo within an inch of his life. It was very clear that these were evil people. Well, these were communists, and there is something that actually makes them evil. They don't become evil because they look sinister, although in the movies they were sinister looking, but it was their belief system. But that is what our federal government has become. Every ideal behind what made all those others who preceded us and the communists and portrayed in the movies, everything that made them evil, these people have become. They stand for all these very same principles. We're supposed to believe that they're not just because they live on this plot of land and were allegedly born here. Whether they were or not, it's not relevant. It's what they believe. They are evil people. So they get their sycophant trolls in the media, like Andrea Mitchell and Brian Williams, and they get them to cover these stories that they make up where people are scared into submission. So when the federal government comes knocking on the doors, people don't want to be the next one. Nobody, unless they're in a group, people don't stand up for their rights. They're scared. Then they realize it becomes real. It's not just talk. There is a price I have to pay. I have to go to jail. My family could be destroyed. My property can be seized. I can be made broke just by virtue of having to be in court for years defending myself. Even if I won, I would be broke and my life would be destroyed. Or I could just hand them my gun. That's the reality. And that's why I take issue. What Glenn Beck said is noble. It's noble, if it, and it might work if this were a movie, but it defies human behavior. Unless all of the people who are going to have their guns confiscated were all together in the same place at the same time and could look at each other and see each other and stand up together, it would be different. But that's not the way it works. When they're door to door, the people will surrender. That is why it's imperative that the state intervene. It is the state's job to see this coming. It is our state legislators' job to prepare for it, and their fiduciary responsibility. Why we elect them. Where you live is of paramount importance. If you live in a blue state and you want to maintain your freedom and maintain your property, you better come south. You better flee Sodom and do not delude yourself into thinking that your state is going to stand up for you. They will hand you over to Nero in a heartbeat and gladly. Thank you for joining me. I'm Scott Ryan.